Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Double honors to the elders and to the apostle of the millstone, and enough respect to the brothers out there pushing and spreading the gospel of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai to the four of the world. Now, through the spirit of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, I wanted to do a quick lesson on on a few articles that I had Google Gemini's AI summarize, and Lord willing, this be edifying. This topic deals with, the slow, creeping towards the mandate of the radio frequency identity chip. And so before I get into it, I want to begin with the book of Isaiah, the 41st chapter. Isaiah chapter 41, verse 21. Verse 18. I will open rivers in the high places and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness of a pool of water, and the dry land springs of water. And this is pretty much an exhortation, right? Or a testament to the power of the Lord. And he's going to explain it all. I will plant in the wilderness the cedar and the shittah tree and the myrtle and the oil tree, and I will set in the desert the fir tree and the pine and the box tree together, that they may see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of the Lord Yahweh hath done this, and the Holy One of Israel hath created it. And so produce your cause, saith the Lord Yahweh, and bring forth your strong reasons, saith the King of Jacob. Let them bring forth and show us what will happen. Let them show the former things, what they may be, right? What they be, that we may consider them and know the latter end of them, to declare unto us things for to come. Okay? So when it comes to the scriptures or the prophecy, the word of the Lord, no one comes remotely close, right, to the power of the word of the Lord. There is no book. That's why the scripture says that none shall want her mate. And so it says, let them bring forth and show us, right, what shall happen. What these gods, these idols, these many different man, religion, animal, beast, trees, whatever is out there, let them come. And let them declare something different from what the scripture says declared, and let's see if it's going to come to pass. Let them prove themselves if they have declared things from the beginning, and you'll find out that it was not so. It says, show the things that are to come hereafter, that we may know that ye are gods. Yea, do good or do evil, that we may be dismayed and behold it together. Right? There is no power above the Lord. There is no true might other than the Lord. That's why the scripture says that the deceiver and the deceiver are his. Right? David said, even the wicked is a sword. He is for a reason, right? So, it says, I have raised up one from the north, Yahushai, and he shall come. From the rising of the sun, he shall call upon my name, right? And he shall come down upon princes as upon mortar, and as a potter treadeth clay. In other words, violently. Because these actions that are being described here are done by way of impact. And it's an impact to crush anything that's between that impact and the surface upon which it's being crushed on. So it says, who hath declared from the beginning, that we may know, and before time, that we may say he is righteous? Yea, there is none that showeth. Yea, there is none that declareth. Yea, there is none that heareth your word. All right? So this is the power of the Lord, setting up Yahushai, the nation of Israel, right? Directing the course of event, the course of human history and future and present by his word alone. That's the power of the Lord. And so when it comes to the topic of the microchip, the MOTB, there's a lot of noise that are being made by these unbelievers And all they want to do all day, every day, is try to discredit the scriptures. And even as though I'm going to read this article, they make certain statements here, especially at the very end. In the conclusion, it says, it's a voluntary participation. This bill explicitly states that participation is optional for both states and individuals. It does not mandate the use of digital IDs. And as we read through, you're going to find out why this doesn't matter, right? Because the reason why this bill was put in place is for the greater good, or was for the greater good of the entire public, or was even, to help the government function on a practical level, right? Because, and I always say this, that it's like that government, they prioritize practicality over ideology. If a government is trying to accomplish something, but an ideology stands in its way, they will forsake it, and they will, they will cross the boundaries of human rights just to accomplish certain things. That's why there's such a thing as a draft. If there's a draft and you don't go, they put your ass in jail. Even though they will say it's a free country and yada yada, you don't have to do all that. Okay? And so I had a very interesting article, which is titled "A New Bill That Aims to Drive States Towards an NIST Digital ID Standards." And this came out in February 2026. I'm a little late on that, but I really had to search it out. And the whole point of that, right, is to, this bill is meant to fund states. And these states are supposed to upgrade, or at least create or perfect, a digital ID system standard that aims to solve the problems that are being currently faced by them. Okay, so instead of reading this whole article, I just have it, summarized here, and we're going to pick out the key points. So it says the article, "The new bill aimed to drive states towards the NIST digital ID standards," published by the Federal News Network in early February 2026, details a bipartisan, if you didn't know, it's just, two parties agreeing on something, okay? So it says it details an agreement between two parties, a legislative effort to modernize the United States digital identity infrastructure. They are heading towards this. This is what's coming. You can deny it all you want. You can be willingly blind to it, or be, to be deliberate. You can be as deliberate in your ignorance as you want, but it is coming. And who has declared this from the very beginning? It's the word of the Lord. The Apostle John saw it. And what the Apostle John saw was the same narrative that all the prophets saw. The only difference is the Apostle John, what was unique to him was the MOTB. But everything else that he saw, he detailed in the book of Revelation. All the prophets saw it. It's one narrative. And the scripture says that Yahushua is going to come to a world that is a world that we're currently living in. Right? The book of Daniel says that in the last days, in the day of the Lord, wisdom shall increase. We're living in it. People shall move to and fro, and people are doing that better than they did back then. That we live, back then in the ancient world, globalization still exists, but it was slow, and it wasn't really, as much or as far as we perceive it to be. But now it's on a different scale. The prophets talks about how in the times where people fight with swords and shield, there's going to be a time where it's going to be fought with fire, and we're living in that time. The Apostle John saw it. He saw the planes, he saw the reform, these modern militaries, he saw all these things. All the prophets saw it. He saw the prophets, Ezra. He saw Yahushua appears from the clouds, and these nations fight him in the clouds. Now, what point in history has that ever happened where man can actually fight in the skies? When John detailed the same thing, he called them the devil's angels, but it was the same thing, because the word devil and Satan, it's pretty much who Esau Edom is. So his angels would be his messengers those who fight on his behalf, who fight for his ideals. They send them up there to try to fight Yahushai, and the scripture says that Yahushai completely vaporized them. So all these things are declared from the very beginning, and people are denying it until eventually they can't deny it anymore. Because now they're showing you that they are actually funding it. I did a video that talked about how Trump was about to pass a new bill that kind of regulated the creation of AI, and then these lobbyists called his ass and told him he better not do that shit, and he didn't, because they wanted to lead the world. Why do they want to lead the world? Because the scripture says that it was gonna be his mark, because they are supposed to be the leading nation in this new world order that's being created. Okay, and that is why you have even Pope Leo going up and talking about how one of the most dangerous things that ought to be taken care of right now is the AI infrastructure. See, these theologians or these Christians, they mocked the man of the Lord, right? But now they seem to realizing that there is only one way that the world is heading. There's only one direction in which the world is heading, and that is the direction that the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, beginning with the elders, have been preaching all along. There is one truth that they are yet to accept, or at least that they are yet to witness, and that's Yahushai, who he truly is. Because everything is undeniable now. We can't be, they can't mock us anymore when we talk about the UFOs, because it's already here. They are witness to it. They can't mock about the RFID chip because it's already here. The technology is here. They can't mock us when we talk about the destruction with nuclear missiles, because not only does the invention here, but the tension between nations and the willingness to use it is already so apparent. And so it says the bill, that was what I was brought up. It says the bill is titled the Stop Identity Fraud and Identity Theft Act. It was introduced by Representative Bill Foster and Pete Sessions. Its primary goal is to close the gap between federal security standards and the state-level implementation to combat the surging wave of identity-related crimes. Right? Treasury-led grant program. It says the bill authorizes the Secretary of Treasury to establish an identity fraud prevention innovation grant program. In other words, they're putting money together. And these grants, this money, are designed to provide states with financial resources necessary to upgrade their legacy identity systems. And what are they upgrading it to? John saw it. He causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor. There's going to be pushback because I think when not really sure. Let me see. Right. When I looked it up here, it says here, recent analysis indicate that a singular federally mandated national digital ID remains unlikely for Americans. And this is what they always want to tell you. Oh, it's unlikely, it's not going to happen while they're creating it. They said the same thing about the bombs, the nuclear missiles. Oh, we're not going to use it, and then but they keep making more. Oh, we signed a treaty, we're not going to go to war anymore, and then they fucking go to war and they drop bombs on people. Oh, we're modernized now. We the same thing with the jab, the Vanessa. They say, oh no, we're not gonna mandate, and then they mandate that shit. How many examples do you need? And the list goes on. What I know and what I cannot know is just too much. But people ignore the pattern. The pattern is it's the data, it's the fact. They always want to act for proof, but that's the proof in the pudding, It's just yeah. So it says so they're putting money together to upgrade identity systems. These are the keywords that you have to look out for, because Esau always tried to be slick with his words, and that's the one thing about the English language. All these other languages in the world, they are simple. They don't have a lot of this, even if they're complicated, they don't have a lot of, I guess, synonyms and all these great, different big ass words, different syllables is going on. But the English language has all these things. The dictionary is thick as hell for one main reason. It's so that you can always find a word that someone doesn't know, to hurt them. That's why whenever you sign a contract, it's so many freaking words that you never heard of. And even if words that you've heard of, it's used in a way, it's phrased in a way that you just don't even understand. These are words, it'll be is, are, of, within, without. These things, but when they put in a sentence, you just don't understand it. And that's how the English language is made for. It is the language of the devil, the worst of the heathen, Satan. And the scripture says that his nature is to deceive. And so you have to be keen, in recognizing these key words that they use, because it sounds benevolent. It doesn't sound, it's meant to not be alarming, but what's meant, to comfort you. When Esau tries to comfort you, you ought to be alarmed. The scripture says that the tender mercies of the wicked is cruel. Even when he's trying to be merciful, he's going to be cruel. That's why you go to him to heal you of diseases, and you come to find out that it can give you freaking other problems that there is no cure for. I saw a video of it was like an allergy pill. It was like a nasal allergy pill. No, actually, no, it can't be that. It was something so small, right? But they give you this pill, and come to find out that you can have thoughts about offing yourself. I'm like, what? That's the one thing no medicine can cure. But so it says a central requirement of the bill is that states using these grants must align their digital identity credentials, such as mobile driver's license, with the National Institute of Standards and Technology digital identity guidelines. And I have to look into that. It says combating modern threats. The legislation specifically targets vulnerabilities exploited by organized criminals network and hostile nation states. It places a heavy emphasis on defending against generative AI-powered deepfakes and other sophisticated forms of identity spoofing. So what happens when they decide that the only way to combat these modern threats is to have, is to have a singular federally mandated national digital identity system? What happens when they decide that now your freedom don't matter anymore? Why do you think these Edomites are trying to at least those that are listening to theories like conspiracies like this, they are passing new bills to prevent states from mandating, because they know it's possible. But you know what? None of that is going to matter. None of that will matter. All right? So, it's like, yeah. So it says a critical bipartisan House bill introduced a Treasury Department grant program engineered to nudge states towards adopting a standardized digital identity frameworks. The funding is strictly tied to states aligning their mobile credentials with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Look, it may not seem like much, but it's heading towards that place. So this is on a federal level, right, concerning federal policies and legislation, because I had asked AI to provide sources and summaries of those sources concerning topics of the prospect of a standardized digital ID system for Americans. And it gave me a whole list of, it didn't give me a lot, but it's still enough to go by. So on a federal level, you have these bills kind of going on. And then we all know about the Real ID system that was introduced by the TSA. And then there's the commercial level. These are the independent, I guess, corporations out there that are creating their own digital identity system. Now, eventually, they're going to have to loop that back into the federal government, because they can't just go off and do any things on their own. For example, if they decide to set up a payroll, with their digital identity system, it has to run through the government. That's the thing that Americans really don't understand. They think that these independent contractors out here gives the illusion of freedom from the government, but it's not. They work with the government. But because you see Apple or Samsung or T-Mobile, you think they have nothing to do with the government, but they do. They do. That's why if anything happens, the government can just call them and they will give all your information to them. Everything about you. Give you your location, your mama's name, where your father works, everything about him. And they see, because they work together, and they can't deny the government. Everything you search up goes through the government, or is stored. In case the government wants a reference, they can do it. So this framework is already there. We're just waiting on the Lord to set these things up. And that's why the scripture says that what? Count the long suffering of the Lord to be mercy. No one should ever dare the Lord to do the things that he talks about, because when he does it, then people start crying. When we oftentimes read the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter, and we talk about the wars and rumors of war and the horrible things, and people say, oh, all you guys do is talk about wars and rumors of war, but then when it happens, they want that shit to stop. They keep saying, well, when is it going to happen? You guys keep saying it's going to happen. When is it going to happen? And then when they get the beginning of sorrows, they want it to stop. We talked about the inflation in the book of Revelations, the sixth chapter, where it talks about a measure of wheat for a penny, which is a penny was a lot of money back then. That's a whole day's work just to have a small portion of a daily meal. So there's inflation. They say, oh, you guys keep talking, saying bad things are going to happen, but it never does. And then when it happens, they start crying. People are going to learn. They're going to see it. And all these false camps out there, the IUIC and all these people that are mocking the MOTB, the time will come. And Apostle Torah said, he said the time is coming where that's going to be the only thing that knocks some sense into all these zombies over in these different camps. Because saying it won't really change them, but seeing it. And though they are going to be those who come in at the 11th hour. Right? So, yeah, that's pretty much it on that. I thought this was very interesting. So, right, they say they're giving $233 billion. Okay. Oh, actually, no. Protecting government programs. By securing identity verification, the bill aims to protect integrity of federal benefit programs. The GAO has estimated that federal programs lose between $233 billion and $521 billion. Billion, the B is a lot of money. One of them is a lot of money. And they're losing 500 of those annually, a year, to fraud. You think that if they're trying to save this much money and your ass come up here and say you ain't going to, you think they're going to give a damn? Oh, man. He causeth all, but small and great. There is going to be, it's both ways. he's gonna make it appealing to some people, and those that just won't concede to the appealing, to the deception, he's gonna get physical, he's gonna get forceful with them, because he knows he has but a short time. That's why they are rushing all these things. That's why they can't even keep it quiet. Because to keep things quiet, you have to go, in slow increments. But they're just rushing it in. So, I mean, it's pretty much news on the, on the developments in identity systems being upgraded. So I thought that was important. And Lord willing, this was edifying. In closing, I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachakodash, Shalom, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahshai, Brakatham, to Yahims and Akwafs that are listening in truth and sincerity. May the blessing of blessing be upon the house. And until next time, Shalom.